right, well, we are going to get started. I'd like to welcome everyone to Creating a Brain of Inspirations. My name is Shelley Haydock, and I'm co-hosting today with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions, and Tracy Barr.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
We're going to have a lot of different examples in the first half of the session, and then what we're going to do is get into how to create these examples. Really the whole focus of today's events is how you can create a place of contemplation and inspiration and a context for action, and a positive context of that in your own personal brain. There are many ways to organize and link information together, and there's no limit on what type of information you can actually organize in your personal brain. So by creating a brain of all your key aspects that inspire you, this will help you to not only set goals for businesses, but help you remember things that would otherwise maybe be in your head, but not in any sort of contemplative place for reference. So we're talking about inspiration. So I've got my inspiration brain open, and I've got it divided into a couple areas. First of all, people that inspire. And for those of you that are new to the brain, pieces of information in the brain are what we call thoughts. And a thought can represent any type of digital information. So under people, I have various types of people that inspire. So athletes, designers, entrepreneurs, fictional characters, survivors, inventors, all kinds of things. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on athletes. And clicking on any thought in the brain triggers all related pieces of information. So you're constantly presented with the most relevant information. So under my athletes area in my brain, I've got links to Amelia Earhart, and I've attached photos of various athletes that I found pretty inspirational. And when I click on that particular athlete, one of the nice things about the brain is I can have this piece of information, in this case it's Terry Fox, organized under various categories. So Terry Fox in this case is not only an athlete, but he's a great Canadian, and he's under the leadership section in my brain. So it's very easy to organize information. Now the reason I like to create these different areas in my brain is they help me understand my own path to success, and I can learn and extract valuable lessons from these people. So if I want to go ahead and add information or create more people in this brain, I can do that. So let me just go ahead and create a new thought. So I'm going to create a new thought here for Lance Armstrong. Oh, and you can see that I actually have Lance Armstrong in my brain. So let me go ahead now and add some more information on Lance. So I'm just going to go out to the web and do a search. And I'm using the brain's built-in search web feature. And I'm going to go to Lance Armstrong's official website. So when I have that site up, what I can do is simply drag and drop that site into the brain. And there's a couple ways I can do it. I'll just reposition my window under the thought so you can see the way this is done. I'm simply going to drag this URL and drop this either on the thought if I want it to go on the thought, or if I want it below. Maybe I just want to make a reference to the fact that this is the official website. I can go ahead and do that. And the other thing that I can do is add images. So I'm going to come over here and go to images. And I think I'm going to grab this image here and add it to the brain. So all I have to do is copy this. And paste this as a thought icon. And now I've got this image in my brain. And the way this might relate is I might want to extract some sort of key values from these people. So if I go, I'm going to go back to my area in my brain called ideas and activate that. And I'm going to put some thoughts in my brain about persistence. And sort of never giving up. And from there, you know, I might want to link Lance Armstrong and Terry Fox. So here what you can see is I've sort of created this area in my brain. Now persistence might be related to a particular project. I might be working on a new website for my client. And this sort of helps inspire me. So while this might go under, let's say, my project section in my brain, and then I can go ahead and drag documents on, let's say, timeline, goals, maybe the team members. Oops, let me just go ahead and change the spelling of this here. What you can see is I always have sort of that inspirational area that I can reference in my brain. So I'm going to give you a couple more ideas for what you can add in your brain. In this particular brain, there's another section here on designers. And often what you can find is for product design, product development, product marketing, creating a design reference area can be quite powerful. So in this particular section, I've actually listed various designers from Michelangelo to Coco Chanel, and then again just gone in and grabbed information. And the brain's really great at sort of launching a number of URLs. So in this case, if I want to launch Coco Chanel on the web, I can go ahead and read about her. If I want to go to the Chanel website real quick and get information on their products, I can do that. And of course, I can see that Coco Chanel was not only a designer, but an entrepreneur in this brain. So that's sort of one area. If you're using your brain for business and you're looking for some inspiration, the other thing that you can do is, of course, take a specific section, whether it's in your brain or specific topic, and create a full brain. So I'm going to go ahead and jump over to another brain now called Legendary Entrepreneurs. And this particular brain is all about sort of key people and the empires they've built and sort of the ideas that they stood for. And one of the advantages of the brain is the many different dimensions that you can organize information in. So in this particular example, we've got entrepreneurs organized by time. So if I want to look at who the great entrepreneurs are of, say, the 70s to 80s, I can see that sort of some of the people that I've added in this brain are Bill Gates, Fred Smith, and Steve Jobs. And again, sort of the goal here is to put things in your brain that are relevant and meaningful to you so that you can contemplate them and abstract valuable lessons and simply just kind of be inspired by great things that people have done or places that you've liked to be, and gain a frame of reference from it. So here, for instance, if I click on Steve Jobs, and I'll just make that full screen, we can see a lot here. Of course, we can see the time period. Of course, this is all subjective. He's, of course, still very relevant today, but in this case, I've organized him from 1970 to 1989. And I've also have some link types here. Now this can be done with people that you're tracking and also real companies in this case, which of course these two are. So here I've got a jump thought, which is a lateral connection to Bill Gates, and it's set as rival. So in this case, some of these various entrepreneurs in this brain are going to be intersecting, and they might be either partners or rivals, and that, of course, can be represented by the link types in the brain. The other thing that's kind of nice to do in your brain is to add quotes. So in this case, there's a quote from Steve Jobs about how design is not just what it looks like and feels, but how it works. And we can see that he founded Apple. If I mouse over Apple, he founded Next and Pixar. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Pixar, who Pixar, of course, put out Toy Story. Here's the key producer, Pixar, and it was acquired by Disney. So if I click on Disney, I can see now that Steve Jobs is a major stakeholder in Disney because of that acquisition, which then is connected, of course, to another key entrepreneur, Walt Disney himself, which is obviously, again, played a key role in the 1930s and 40s. And from here, this particular brain is all about kind of understanding what these people have done and how they've got to where they are, so that you know, in your own project goals in life, you can take away these lessons from sort of the world's brightest and apply them to your own projects and to your own life goals. So here, you know, Disney's talking about if you can dream it, you can do it. He was very keen on characters being assets, you know, from Mickey Mouse to all of the you know, princesses in his movies. That was key to his success. And of course, if I click on this quote, I can go to other quotes in this particular brain. So this brain is another reference that is going to be available to everyone on the seminar today. But this might just give you an example. And this particular brain is focused on business entrepreneurs, but you might be a designer. You might want to create a brain of designs. Maybe you're an architect. You could do a modern architect brain. And again, by having a place that you can move so seamlessly through ideas, through people, and understand how they're connected, takes your ability to derive insights and valuable lessons to a whole new level. I'm also going to go into companies. So the other way I could browse through this brain is by companies. And again, you can see how nothing is isolated. One of the advantages of the brain and really creativity is the ability to do sort of lateral thinking and make connections that don't really exist you know, in traditional mediums. So for instance, there would be really no way to organize a brain like this in my file folder system. You know, I'd pretty much have to decide, for instance, if we go back to, let's say, Apple, where I want Apple. Do I want Apple in my under Steve Wozniak, Steve Jobs, or under companies, or maybe under consumer products? You know, I can go ahead and add another thought here. You know, it's very difficult to know where to put things, and that's because our minds are much more complex than a single folder. So by having the ability to organize things in a more natural, nonlinear manner, we're really capturing these relationships that in turn sort of fuel our own ideas and innovation when we're working on things. So this is the company area. And finally, there's sort of one other company that we can talk about, and that's McDonald's, and which is another example of sort of brand building, and really Ray Kroc, through the consistency of his brand, somewhat invented franchising. So if I'm doing some work on brand building, and if I want to add Ray Kroc to, you know, maybe what I'm doing in marketing, I've got this reference here, and you know, how he's built the consistency of brands, kind of his thinking, and some key articles on that. And of course, all I have to do is click on that link, and that's going to launch a Business Week article on Ray Kroc. So that's the entrepreneurial brain. What I want to do now is, I've shown you a few topic-specific brain, is talk a little bit about how you might have sort of pieces and snippets of these types of inspirational ideas in your own brain, and how you get started on creating that brain. So I'm going to go to another example here, and this particular example is called Know Thyself, and it's really about kind of creating a brain all about you and key milestones in your life. This is another template brain that's going to be available to everyone. Feel free to email us, and I also have a blog entry on this. And really what Know Thyself is about is just creating an area and a place in your brain. This could be a brain in and of itself, like this example, or even a subsection of your larger brain, on key events, goals, and even life stages. So I'm going to go through some of these thoughts to again give you some ideas for what could pay out in dividends in your own brain. So events, some of the events you might want to put in your own brain might include obviously children. You can have a whole section on kids, key milestones, travel, trip to Europe that you might be planning, which could also be under places. This is another area where you could have information on your hometown, where you live now, that kind of thing. Another area in terms of inspiration, if you're kind of thinking, I'm not sure how to get started, what I'd suggest doing is just creating a thought in your brain on what you love. And it's real funny because a lot of times we have people who want to get started, and they're using the brain for, a very, huge and complex project at work, which is fantastic. And of course, it works very well visualizing those types of relationships. But I like to tell people, get started on something you love, and you'll see how quick and easy it is to build a brain. The brain is really the best place for putting all these little things about your favorite athlete, your favorite hobby in your brain, and then you'll be surprised by having that place how much fun it is to grow it and how much you'll learn by dragging, dropping it. I mean, you can store some of this in bookmarks, but there's no way to then go ahead and take notes on what you're doing or continue to build this. So just to give you an idea of some of the categories you could have, cooking, music, nature, and I think Matt's going to talk a little bit more about that, technology. Another aspect of your brain that you might want to add is, of course, past. We did a little bit of organization by year for the entrepreneurial brain. You can do the same thing in your own brain, on your personal end of things, or even with company projects, and of course future. And future would consist of key goals or dreams, and everything else like that, and of course technology if it's for a company, and so forth. And then finally, the corners of my mind is another area where you can think about sort of key beliefs. So whether it's philosophy, politics, religion, things you support, things you're against, charity, that's something that can be visualized and mapped out really nicely in the brain. Intellect, the brain is fantastic as a self-learning tool for adding new information in your brain and aggregating it. I love using the brain for books that I'm reading. New ideas that I want to become more versed in. And of course, feelings here, this is just going back to what you love, that kind of thing. So this is another example that will help you become more aware of your own activity in your life and help you stay organized. So what I'm going to do now is move to sort of the fuller brain and kind of what this looks like when it's all filled out. And you can see kind of how this is done. So now that if one of your passions is let's say style or architecture, you can simply go to that area in your brain and see all the architects that inspire you, whether it's Frank Gehry or Richard Meyer or Frank Lloyd Wright. You have all that information right at your fingertips. And that inspiration might be related to, let's say, your kitchen renovation. You might be into sort of a very modern, natural look. So I'll make a connection to somebody who inspires me, but then bring it back home in the real project that I'm working on. So here, under kitchen renovation, I've got links to my renovation budget, and all I have to do is launch that document. I've got images on various kitchen designs. If I want to start a new design document on what this renovation will look like, all I have to do is add an attachment. And let me go ahead and attach a word, and it's going to go ahead and launch Word and bring that in the brain. But you can see how it all comes together real nicely in one place. And this can be done in sort of the same manner for more complex business projects. So let me just go ahead, and I'm going to go to another example here called JB Apparel. And this example is how you can use the brain to organize your inspirations for product design. This company has a very complex and large customer base, as well as different products that they've gone ahead and are producing. So I'll just give the web meeting a second here to catch up and just close a few applications while we get JB Apparel. And I guess while I'm waiting for this brain to load, Matt, are there any questions so far on anything I've demoed?
We're looking good so far. Tracy and I are answering a couple of questions here. People did have some questions about organizing the thoughts within Personal Brain, some of which I'll be demoing, but also it might be interesting for people to see some of the different views that we're capable of getting once we build out a larger personal brain like this.
Okay, great. Well, I've just loaded, and I just want to verify, can everyone see that? Because I had a bit of a redrawing issue on my computer. Can you see the JB Apparel? Okay, fantastic. So in this particular example, this is a brain not only of sort of inspirational design references, but it becomes the working place for business development, corporate identity, and new product design. So if I click on product and design, in this particular brain, I've got everything from mapping out trends to product lines, and how it all comes together and what demographic it serves. Now, I've just made my brain the display area full screen by double-clicking. And what I can do now is, if I want to see distant thoughts here, I just hit the plus sign, and now I can go ahead and go to another area, maybe on design reference and winter apparel, and see that second level of thoughts. So that's sort of our distant thought view. But the other view that's quite nice is our outline view. And the way outline view works is you can get an outline or sort of overview, and I'll just make the font size a little smaller, of this entire brain and the different products and reference material that I might have. And if I want to go ahead and in this view go over to yoga apparel, I can go ahead and move around in that view and very much expand or collapse different branches in this brain. And I can go either way. You can see that yoga gear is a category above yoga apparel, and that's under activewear, which is under the research section in this design company. And of course, I can reference different designs by zooming over product and see the different types of fabric that the company is considering here. And that's sort of our outline view. This is a great view to kind of see a broader view of how things look. And then the final view that we can go to is, I'll just create a new expanded view. An expanded view is as much more of a nonlinear view of your brain. And now what I'm doing in expanded views, I'm just moving the thoughts in a way that help me understand things. So you can see again, I've got my t-shirt design references. I've got that under yoga apparel. If I want to open up my activewear area or go back up to JB Apparel, I can continue to expand and move this area around to really get a picture of my businesses and my design references. And now I'm just collapsing branches. And the other thing that I can do is, if I want to activate a thought, that sort of takes this zone or this thought cluster and makes it a little darker than some of the other areas. So I can kind of play with that and move things around. And if I like this view, I have the ability to go ahead and save that. I can save the view. Let me just go ahead and call this Products view. And then I can just simply load that anytime that I like. And just to go and kind of show you what these views look like in another example, you can see, let me go back to our normal view here. Actually, if we go to the top of Legends here, and I just do one more plus, you can see how much more interesting that becomes. So before I had my view as simply Henry Ford, Ray Kroc, Walt Disney, Thomas Edison, and now I can see just a little bit more information in the with my distant thoughts on, and of course I could switch to outline, and you can get more of the same brain that I clicked through earlier, a little bit more of a linear view here, an outline-oriented view on Steve Jobs or Ray Kroc. So you can get a sense of how that comes together. And of course, same thing with expanded view. If I want to move these different individuals around and see how they relate to each other, I can go ahead and set that up. So that's some ideas. I think now what we'll do, we're on the halfway mark here, is I'm going to pass presenter over to Matt, and Matt's going to walk you through how to actually get started on creating an inspirational brain or creating some inspirational thoughts that will help you potentially design your next product or make your life a little better.
Great. Thanks, Shelley. And yeah, I wanted to show you a couple of different examples today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. And the first example I'm going to show you is one of my own existing brains. I call this just simply my cyber home. And I want to show you how previously for adding bits of inspiration into my brain, I would be under a particular topic. Let's say, for example, if I was under land. And this brain I use to keep track of all my friends, my family, my hobbies, and general interests. And I've got a thought here called museums. These are museums that I've been to, museums that I would like to go to, or simply museums in my area. But from time to time, I'll draw a bit of inspiration from that museum. Maybe it's a piece of artwork or a piece of furniture or the architecture that I like. This is a famous old house in the Los Angeles area called the Gamble House. And I've got information here about the architects that I like and different designs that I like. And when I see something I like, maybe I'll take a picture. Here, for example, is a picture of the Gamble House koi pond. And it was very inspiring and on many different levels for me. I really liked the architecture, the scenery, just the mood that it set. So I gathered this picture actually off of their website and just simply dropped it here into my brain. So in the future, if I'm doing a little bit of gardening in my backyard, or if I'm planning to put a koi pond in, or do some landscaping, I can just draw a little bit of information from this. So that the inspirations in my own personal brains are typically just images, or sometimes they're famous quotes and things. They're peppered here and there throughout the different brains that I create. And I like to create different brains for different purposes. You can see I've got an entirely separate brain simply on building a canoe. It's an interest I have. It's something that I've never done that I'd maybe like to do someday. And you can see it brought me straight to this inspiration thought. In my Build a Canoe brain, I've got a lot of information about how to. Just whenever I've got some free time, I can search online and find different tips and tricks and patterns and blogs that people have written about boat building and so on. And I keep my own special thought simply called inspiration. So when I see an image that I like, I can just simply bring that right here into my brain by clicking and dragging. Or I can actually bring in an entire website. So the Canadian Canoe Museum, or a place where I enjoy going canoeing, Sawbill Canoe Outfitters. So your inspiration can come in many different forms, and that's really one of the beautiful things about Personal Brain, is that it really becomes a digital reflection of your own organic brain. You saw earlier that Shelley was keeping her quotes on individual thoughts. I like to keep my quotes down here in the notes section, so sometimes my inspiration is in the notes section down below. And what I'd like to do for you now, though, is create a new brain from scratch. You can create as many different brains as you'd like when you install Personal Brain. So I'm going to create a new brain called My Inspirations. And this is really a great starting point. If you're just getting started with Personal Brain, this is really a great way to dive into getting familiar with the technology. So I'm going to call this My Inspirations. And that's really going to start me off with a blank slate. And I want to show you for an example of really how quickly you can create just a basic structure for yourself to start adding all the information that is important to you. I like to create a couple of high-level subcategories. And to do this, I click and drag off of the child gate on what we call the starting thought. So this will create a new level of subcategories we call child thoughts. And I'm going to create more than one at a time by using the semicolon trick. So what I'd simply do is simply type in, I'll say people, places. I liked the organization that Shelley used in her original brain, so I'll use that here again, and things. And I separated each one of those as I was typing them out with the semicolon, and it actually created multiple thoughts for me at one time. That's really a great trick to utilize if you are just getting started with personal brain. You know the things that inspire you. You know the people that inspire you. Maybe they're your relatives or your family or sports heroes or spiritual leaders. And you know off the top of your head the different people or topics that you want to place in here. And that semicolon can get you up and running really quickly. I'm going to go into the things category, things that inspire me. And I'm going to create another series of sort of subcategories. I'll say art, film, nature, and books. And we'll go into nature. And now let's actually start adding some content. You saw earlier that Shelley was clicking and dragging off of a web page. And I'll just reiterate how that's done because we do that quite often with Personal Brain. It's really a great place to start saving all your favorite web pages or bookmarks or frequently used websites. So here is, I've pulled up a couple of pages ahead of time. First I've got the Grand Canyon, one of just my favorite parks to visit whenever I get the chance. And again, I just simply click and drag off of the icon here in the address bar. I can bring that right into the brain, and it creates a new thought. And I can very easily go in if that thought is a little long, which it is here. Personal Brain will wrap that thought around if it doesn't fit on the screen at one time, or you can just simply clean it up here a little bit in the on the Properties and Attachments tab. And let's go back to the to my web pages. You'll see that you can also just grab individual images or just sections of web pages as well. Here I've got a picture of some of the topography at Yellowstone, and I can just simply right-click and save this picture onto my desktop, or I can even copy this picture and create a new thought called Yellowstone. And now that I have that image on my clipboard, I can go down to the icon for this image and select Paste Thought Icon. So that will actually grab that full-size image and place it as an attachment for this particular thought. And as you can see, you'll get just a smaller version, a thumbnail of that, but when I mouse over that image, I get the full-size image here in the upper portion of my Personal Brain. And of course, finally, we can also, let me open up another web page and just show you one more example of how to get web content into your brain. Here I've got a list of parks in the California area. I'm just going to select this entire list. I don't necessarily want to go through and attach each and every park, maybe just the parks I'm interested in, or review this list when I have some free time in the future. So I'm just going to copy this list, which are hyperlinked to the actual web pages. So I'll copy that, and under Nature, I'll create a new child thought called California Parks. And now I'll utilize the Notes section. I'm just going to right-click down here in Notes and select Paste. And Personal Brain will actually bring in all of the metadata that you've copied. If you're copying and pasting out of Excel or out of a Word document or anywhere on the web, Personal Brain is always going to do its best to bring in that metadata that you're copying as well. So as you can see, all of these items are actually hyperlinked. So if I wanted to take a closer look at Pinnacles National Monument, I can just click on that. It's going to bring me out to the web and take me directly into that particular website. And once again, if that's a park in California I want to visit in the future, I'll just simply click and drag to create a new thought right into to Personal Brain. So I've got access to that website very, very quickly and easily in the future. Now, you can also click and drag items off of your desktop or out of your folders or anything that you have access to. Any digital document you have on your operating system can be brought into Personal Brain. Here I've got a thought called Favorite Museums. It's just a document that I've created, a list of my favorite museums I like to go to. So I'm going to go over to the Art section, and now I'll just simply click and drag that document right off the desktop into my Personal Brain. Now what it did is it created a shortcut to that particular item. You can see it still resides out on my desktop, but now I've got a shortcut so I can launch that document right here from my Personal Brain. You do have the option to move files into Personal Brain as well as just simply copying files into the brain. So if I wanted to bring a copy onto this same thought, so I've got a link to my shortcut as well as an internal version in my Personal Brain. So I can just hold down the Control key. So I just click on Control and drag and drop into Personal Brain. And now you may notice that I've got two attachments. It's got the little number 2 there. So I have both an internal copy as well as a shortcut. And the reason why we give you those different options for moving files into the brain or copying them into the brain or just creating shortcuts is because no two environments are ever the same. You may be on a network where you're trying to link to documents on a shared drive that other people need access to. And therefore, it might be best to create a shortcut. Whereas in my own personal brains that I travel with and take with me wherever I go, all of my documents are moved into Personal Brain. It makes it very easy to back that brain up, to archive it, or just simply to move it to other computers by creating what we call a brain zip. You can click on Create Brain Zip and zip your entire brain up into a single file, which makes it great for archiving or moving to new locations. And finally, in this particular brain that I'm creating from scratch here, let's go over into back to nature. And I'm going to open up my Outlook. And I just wanted to point out that we can also drag and drop Outlook items right from Outlook itself into Personal Brain. And you can do this also with any web-based email, or if you're on a Mac, you can do it with Mail on Mac as well. You can see that I've got an email from a friend here about a new state park in Wisconsin that she recently went hiking there and thought I might be interested, so she was sharing that with me. So I'm just going to simply click on that email right from Outlook and drag it right into Personal Brain. Now, the great thing about Outlook and Personal Brain is not only do you get a link back to that email in Outlook, but you also get a copy of the text of that email right here in your notes section. So if in the future that email is deleted or moved to another location, or if your emails are on some type of archive server and they time out after a particular time, which happens quite often in corporate environments, you still have the text in that original email right there in the notes section of your Personal Brain. And it will do that for your Outlook contacts and your Outlook events as well that you can bring into Personal Brain. Now, as I said, that is a shortcut to the actual email itself as the attachment to this thought. Just like I did with this Favorite Museums document, I can control, click, and drag from Outlook as well if I want to move a copy of that email here into my Personal Brain. So if I don't want to just rely only on the notes section, I want a copy of that actual message, maybe it has a whole series of attachments and so on, I can just control, click, and drag right into Personal Brain to retain an internal copy of that particular item. So you can see how quickly this is all starting to fall together. One last thing I wanted to share with you is how to link thoughts to existing thoughts elsewhere in the brain. Under nature, something that inspires me under nature, or I should say someone that inspires me in the topic of nature, is Aron Ralston. Aron Ralston, I think I've got his name spelled correctly there. You may remember Aron was the hiker that became pinned between a rock and a canyon wall many years, about 5 years ago, and had to remove his own arm to basically rescue himself. Very inspiring story. He wrote a book called Stuck Between a Rock and a Hard Place, I think ironically is what it was called. But there I created a link to Aron. I can attach his Wikipedia page or a link to his book, and I can also attach Aron back to the thought under Inspirational People. So if I just start typing in another thought name, you can see as soon as I type in the letter P, I get a list of existing thoughts that already exist that start with the letter P. I don't want multiple thoughts called people. I might go to the wrong one in the future. Therefore, I want to link this to my existing people thought. I'll just double-click on people. And now you can see Aaron not only falls under nature, but also falls under the people thought that I created earlier, where I can start building out all the people that inspire me. And let's fast forward to take a look at what this brain would look like after just about another hour or two of work, depending on how much content I want to get into it. I've already created, actually, another brain called Inspiration. And I just recently began this, and you can see how quickly it all comes together. This is really the same content as I was creating earlier, but with just additional attachments. I started typing in famous quotes by Confucius and different quotes that inspire me and that I've remembered over the years. But you can see if I go into my different topics, here again I've got my different books. Actually, here's the book, Between a Rock and a Hard Place, that was written by Aaron, underneath my people thought of other people that inspire me. Now, the question came up earlier, I noticed on the question panel. I believe it was Laurel that had a question about getting too many thoughts in one area, and this is a good example. I've got a lot of different people that inspire me. This is really just the tip of the iceberg. But if I want to continue to build in this area, I might want to create some subcategories. I don't want to get too cluttered, and I don't want to get a scroll bar at the bottom to have to scroll through all the different people to find the person I'm looking for. So for that reason, I think I want to do what we call a little bit of gardening in this area, just a little cleanup under this people thought. So I'm going to create some new child thoughts as subcategories for this area of inspirational people. So I'll say that we've got spiritual people. I've got, I guess, nature people, or environmentalists, I should say. And my wife and I are cooks, so we have chefs. Or I can even put chefs and people that build architecture in the category of craftsmen. And if I want to break out craftsmen in the future as chefs, architects, and different things like that, I can definitely do that again in the future. So there you can see are my new subcategories: craftsmen, environmentalists, and spiritual. And I just want to show you how easy it's going to be to reorganize this. I'll go over here to craftsmen. And on the right are all of my sibling thoughts. These are thoughts that share the same parent thought people. So we'll say Frank Lloyd Wright is certainly a craftsman. I can scroll down and put in there Green and Green, as well as Gustav Stickley. Ina Garten, who has her own TV show and actually is a fantastic cook, a lot of great cookbooks that my wife likes. One of my favorite chefs and cookbook authors, Thomas Keller. So I've moved them under craftsmen. Let's go to our environmentalists, and we can move Big Al into that category, as well as Richard Branson, who actually just started a new website that's all about, it's called the Carbon War Room, lowering our carbon footprints on Earth. And spiritual leaders. So we'll move Gandhi, Dalai Lama, Confucius, and also under environmentalists, I forgot Aaron. Let me just go right back to that real quick. So back on environmentalists, and I just click and drag Aaron down below environmentalists. And you can see here within probably under 60 seconds, I took this area of people that had, I don't know, 15, 20 different thoughts maybe, and I subdivided them into some easier categories. So when I know the exact person I'm looking for, maybe I want to find some new information about Thomas Keller. Like I said, my favorite chef, wrote a great cookbook called The French Laundry under books and so on. I can still very, very easily access all of that information that I'm looking for there. And one last thing that I wanted to point out, because we're talking about creating brains that inspire us and motivate us, what better way to get you excited about even creating this brain than to actually modify the wallpaper, the look and feel of the brain that you're creating, so that it really reflects the energy of that brain. Here you can see I've put in a little picture of a Zen garden in the background. It's very easy to change the background behind your brains. We actually have some default backgrounds you can utilize if you go up to Options and go to Set Your Theme. You can see that you can move to a series of different type of images or backgrounds. You can play around with the color coding here of the different links between thoughts. So again, I can go up to my Options and into Preferences to play around with the colors, to make the colors, again, really stand out and reflect the pattern or the image of the brain I wish to reflect, or to help the links stand out against a dark background or a light background, and so on. So you can really play around with all these different color components, and right here from the Preferences box is where you can also go into Look and Feel and select and modify your own wallpaper. So I can actually click on Select and navigate around through my computer to find different wallpapers that may help actually just sort of give this brain the image that I'm looking for. And hopefully that'll get you started building your own fantastic inspirational brains. I think, like we've mentioned earlier, it's really a great launching point. If you're just starting with personal brain, start building a personal brain on something you know and love, and you'll see how quickly and easily it is to create a digital representation of your own brain.
Thanks, Matt. We did have a number of questions as you were presenting, and a couple people have asked how to copy and paste thoughts between brains, and I can see that being quite relevant because you might have a brain, for instance, to create my inspiration brain, I copied and pasted a few thoughts from an entrepreneur brain into that brain. So maybe you can talk a little bit about working with multiple brains and leveraging existing thoughts from other brains.
Great. So here I'm going to create a thought underneath nature called canoe. And wouldn't necessarily say an avid canoeing guy, but I really, really enjoy it. I go whenever I get the chance. I'm not so great at it, but we're getting there. And of course, I've got this thought this brain that we created earlier called Build a Canoe. Now, let's say I just wanted to bring a section of this particular brain over from this brain to another brain. I can simply click on the Control key on any individual thought and add it here into the selection box. So I can click on Inspiration, or I can click on an actual gate, so I can Control-click on all of these child thoughts here underneath Inspiration. And I can continue to click around through the brain, Control-clicking on the thought when I want to add it into the selection box, or not Control-clicking when I just simply want to navigate. But when I find exactly what it is that I'm looking for, I can simply right-click on that selection that I've made, copy those selected thoughts from that selection box. And again, we got to the selection box with the Control-click. If you're working on a Mac, that would be a Command-click. I just want to point that out. And now that we've we've got all that into their selection box, we've copied the selected thoughts. We can close that and navigate back to another brain. I'll go back to my Inspirations that we created from scratch here. And under Canoeing, I'm just going to right-click and select Paste Thoughts. And those thoughts will be pasted in the same structure and with all of the different settings and attachments and attributes that you've added to those thoughts. If I had added thought types, or if I had added link types, Shelley was showing us earlier how you can click on a link between two thoughts to actually define that relationship. Any of that content that I've added into those thoughts that I've selected will be brought over from the copy into the brain where they were pasted in. So here you can see are all of my images for inspirational designs and building canoes and so on. Now let's say, for example, I wanted to actually bring that entire canoe brain. It's inspiring for me to build a canoe. So I want to bring one entire brain, brain A, into brain B. The first thing I'm going to do actually is delete this content so I don't double up the content. So I'm just going to Control-click and Control-click on Inspiration. And I will now right-click over here in the selection box and select to forget these thoughts. So those thoughts no longer appear in the Plex. They're actually still there. They're in the forgotten thought list. It's the way, personal brain's way of putting items into the recycle bin. I can always go up to Options, open up my Forgotten Thought list to reactivate those thoughts, or finally permanently delete them if I know I no longer want them in the brain. But let's just go ahead and remove those thoughts, or we can go ahead and just permanently delete them. So I'll go into Options, Show Forgotten Thoughts, select All, and delete those thoughts. So now those thoughts are being deleted. We no longer have those thoughts in the brain. Let's go back and merge the Build a Canoe brain with my inspiration brain. So I actually want to be on Build a Canoe thought. I came back to this brain, so I make sure I'm on the thought called Build a Canoe, and I set that as my home thought. You can right-click on any thought to set that particular thought as the home thought. So that's my home thought, which will be merged in with my inspirations. And we make the process of merging two entire brains very, very simple. All I need to do is click on File and select Merge Brain. And the brain that I'm merging into my Inspirations brain is my Build a Canoe brain. So there it is. I'll select buildacanoe.brain and say Open. And confirm that's what I want to do. Now the brain is doing the rest for me. It's actually opening up my Build a Canoe brain, copying everything, coming back to my Inspirations brain, and pasting it all in. And you'll see there it is. My Build a Canoe brain is now merged with my Inspirations brain that you saw me starting to create earlier. You can see even my thought types. I've got thoughts that are private, which is my budget, how much I want to spend on this project. All of my notes down below, my quotes and things of that nature, links to books, pictures, images, it's all there. I've merged those two brains together very, very easily. So you can see you can actually take sections of brains or merge entire brains together. Now, if I went through that a little bit too fast for you, I'll say two things. First of all, we're recording today's webinar, so we can always go back to the website to watch this webinar again if you're interested. But also, we've got a great page on our website. It's www.thebrain.com/tutorials, and there are some short little 10- and 5-minute tutorials specifically on merging brains, copying brains, or sections of brains from one brain to another. A very, very helpful website. And again, that's thebrain.com/tutorials that covers that entire process.
Okay, great. And there are a couple more questions. We might have to play ball and pass presenter back and forth because I do have an example, a little bit of an example of a personal journal, but I also like for you to cover this as well. There was a question from Linda about how to start creating a journal with a timeline in Personal Brain. She'd like to keep her notes and thoughts all together in the same software, so I thought that might be an interesting example to even cover about the time stamping in notes and the calendar. And then I can also show Linda in the Know Thyself example, there is sort of a timeline that I mapped out for sort of past and present that might also give her some ideas as well.
Great. Well, maybe I can show Shelley how to actually set up notes with timestamps and calendar items, and then you could give us your example as well of what
Perfect.
You've already into an existing brain. Let's go ahead and we'll pick Erin here. Let's say we find out that Erin is going to be at the local Barnes & Noble for a book signing in the coming weeks, and we're really excited about it. I want to go in and take part in that particular event. So on Erin's thought, I can always make a note, book signing at Barnes & Noble. So I just heard in a conversation about this. I want to make a little note about it on that particular thought. Anything that I put down here into to my notes, I typically like to timestamp. And with this little button here, a little picture of a calendar, you can see I click on that and it instantly puts today's date and time. So I know exactly when I found out about that information, or exactly when I had that thought or had that conversation with a particular person if I'm taking meeting notes and so on. And I do this for all of my thoughts. I always do this also for, just on a personal note, whenever I'm making online orders. I always keep track of my tracking numbers, when the order was placed. If I get that little screen that says, print this page out for your records, well, I don't print it out to waste a piece of paper. I'll just copy it, paste it here into my notes, and timestamp it. That way I know exactly what my order is, what my contact number is, or a tracking number, and the actual time that I placed that particular order. So you can timestamp all of your entries just again and again and again here in the notes section. On another note, my wife uses Personal Brain, and she keeps her notes section for a journal of, first steps for the kids, the first words and funny comments and things like that they say. It's really just a great way of keeping track and really reflecting now, 5 years later, what the first year with our son was like and so on. Really a great feature there. But also, more importantly, we can utilize the calendar as well. Now, the calendar is a great way to add reminders for individual events. I'm giving the calendar a little bit more real estate down here. And I've gone to the month view, and I'm going to add a new event for Aaron. I'm just going to click on Add here in the calendar section. And I've got information about what this event is, when it's taking place. I can really use this as a productivity chart, the percentage complete if I'm using this for project management and so on. But for this example, I'll just say there's a book signing. I can keep notes and information about where it is down here in the notes section, or right here in the event. I could say, the Barnes & Noble on 5th Street. Avenue, and a description of the event. What he's going to sign, or just reminders to bring my own book, or to bring a T-shirt, or whatever it is. And I can actually place the actual date and time that this event takes place. Now, I'm actually going to make this back in time. I'm going to say this event was supposed to happen on January 1st, just because I want you to see what the reminders look like in Personal Brain. Also, you can set these reminders up to be weekly reminders, monthly reminders. I've heard of Personal Brain users that use Personal Brain to remind them of taking medications, or of just simply meeting notes, and so on. We'll just say this event does not repeat. It's one day only, and I do want to receive a reminder. And I want my reminder to come in, we'll say, 15 minutes before that particular event, or we can say an hour or a day before, what have you. Also, if you're really using these event reminders quite heavily, you can prioritize your reminders so that when you're looking at your day view, your top priorities will appear first, as opposed to getting a list of on the day view, and rather than the calendar view of your lowest priority items. So you can set the priority level and say Save, and you'll notice as soon as I click Save, there my event reminder has already popped up. I made that event back on January 1st, so I'm already seeing this event is already over 1 week past due. If I wasn't on the Aaron Thought there, let me just click back up to my Inspirations, and my event became due, this would pop up. I can even click on that particular thought name there in my past due events list to go directly to that thought to review the notes and so on. And from here I can set a snooze for myself, reschedule the reminder, or just dismiss this event. If I click on dismiss, the event will still appear on my calendar, but as you can see it's crossed out, meaning I'll no longer receive the reminders for that particular event. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. Shelley, did you want to give an example of?
Yes, I will take presenter. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So just in terms of kind of journaling and timelines, there has been some questions. We did show how you could use the timelines for organization for entrepreneurs. Actually, before I get into this journaling example, let me just go back and reference that example here. And because sometimes time is quite important. So you can see, you can have content organized under many categories, one of them being time, and then in this case, time is organized by year. With journal, you can do monthly or weekly. So let me just switch back to the inspiration brain here, and let's go to timelines. And oopsie, let me make sure. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong brain. I want to go to Know Thyself. I created a bit of a timeline while Matt was going into the calendar. So timelines here, of course, I've got it organized past, present, and future. And if you're starting a journal, what you can do is create a 2010 timeline, and you can also just take this brain as an example and have a thought for each month of 2010. Now this not only works well for journaling, but it also works great for organizing repetitive content. And I'll scoot over to my brain and show you what I mean, because I actually do organize by timeline for our company newsletters. So in this particular example here, we've got a 2010 timeline, and we've got each month actually shown visually in the Plex. Now, as Matt mentioned, we do have a calendar, we do have notes to timestamp, but in this case, if you actually wanted to focus on, week 1, week 2, week 3, you could go ahead and start journaling, or each day of the month come in here and put this. And the other thing that's nice about that is if January you are doing some, let's say, artwork, you can have that under January. Maybe there's a painting that you're working on, but also have that listed under your hobbies in your brain as well, and so forth. So it's very easy to organize information that way. And just to give you some other timeline examples, let me just go ahead and open up my brain here. Hopefully it's on a presentable thought for everyone. All right, great. And I've got my newsletter area, and you can see I've actually got it pinned to 2008. Now, because the newsletter is a project that I work on and it's happening, I actually have thought types for the year that each of these newsletters are starting. And of course, I just started 2010, so those all get thought types. And if I go to 2009, each one of these newsletters, and sometimes we'll do 2 or 1, is organized by year. And that works really nice. And this is what we call thought types. We haven't really spent too much time on thought types, so what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and open up my own thought types so you can see each one of these thought types here. So when I create a newsletter, now what I'll do is I'll tag it as a 2010, which might seem a little bit strange to do, but since I've been doing these newsletters since 2007, it's really fantastic just to have that ability to go ahead and look at content and organize by year. So that's one way to do it, through thought type. The other thing that you can do when you create these thought types is you can actually do reports. So if I want to go ahead and do a report on a particular thought type, I can just go ahead and run a report on all my 2009 newsletters. And then they appear in this area, and from there I can simply click on if it was the June 2009 newsletter I want. I've got that newsletter. I can see the images I've used. I've got access to all the Word documents, and I can think that way. And then as far as more sort of timeline organization, I've actually gone a step further, and I do my marketing by timeline as well, because there are certain events that are time-based, like conferences that we've done in the past. All that can be organized in your brain. So that's the way that works. And then finally, Matt, I don't know, since you had started your new example, if you want to cover real quick, I know we've only got a couple more minutes left, how to create some thought types and link types and organize by type. I think that might be helpful for the users as well. It's kind of a next step on the inspirational brain. So sure. I'll go ahead and pass the ball back to you.
So let's say I want to, and actually I'll go into one of my existing brains with some thought types. You may have noticed when I was in one of my brains here that different thoughts have different colors. So when I mouse over the Gamble House, we can see that that is a museum. When I mouse over this thought in blue, we can see that's currently on my personal calendar. That's a top priority, this particular item. And I can change that top priority from different thought to thought. But I can utilize these two thoughts here that I have, where I have just some images of photography taken at the Gamble House. Let's say I want to thought type those as being just an item of inspiration in this brain. You can see if I go to my properties and attachments, or excuse me, to my reports, and refresh a list of all the thoughts in this particular brain, there's 1,800 thoughts in this particular brain. So there's quite a bit of content here. The advantage to setting up thought types is, let's say I'm looking for a specific friend. I can filter my thought types, my thoughts by their actual type. So if I want to look at an alphabetical listing of all my friends, I can go directly to my friends and look up Brendan, get right to his thoughts, look up his phone number, his Twitter page, or what have you, and find that information really, really quickly. Well, let's say in this larger brain, 1,800 thoughts, I just want to look through some of my inspirational images. For whatever reason, maybe I'm putting together a family calendar, or maybe I'm working on some type of project, and I've got writer's block. I just need some inspiration. So I want to go to all my inspiration thoughts in this large brain. Let's go back to viewing all thoughts, and let's just jump back over here to this koi pond and the patio. And on the Properties and Attachments tab is where we can set up a thought type. Now we can choose from an existing thought type, but I do not have a thought type for inspiration. So I'm going to create a new thought type. I'll just simply click on Type, and Type, and Inspiration. And here's where I can modify the look and feel of an inspiration thought type. Now I already have a graphic attached to this thought, this koi JPEG. So if I attach a graphic here, this koi JPEG is actually going to overrule the thought type, and I'm still going to get a picture of that koi JPEG. If I don't have an image, then the thought type icon will kick in. You may have noticed on Shelley's brain, she had some really fantastic icons of hearts and people and symbols and things for her inspiration brain. And you can set those up very easily just by grabbing images off the internet. Here for an inspiration thought type, I'll choose a color. Let's say I want all my inspiration thoughts to be yellow. So you can see it's already showing up in yellow up above. And when I mouse over, it tells me that that is an inspiration thought type. I am going to go ahead and grab an icon and paste an icon just so that if one of my inspiration thought types is a quote or just a thought with no attachments, just some content in the notes, I'll still get that icon. So I don't have an icon on my clipboard. I'm going to go ahead and grab one. Shelley used this earlier. We clicked on the magnifying glass to go out and search the web. I'm going to search the web for a heart. And this will actually pull up Google with the search criteria of a heart. And I'll be able to go over to the images. There you can see our real hearts, but there's the type of heart I'm looking for. I'm just going to right-click and select Copy. So now I have that image on my clipboard. I can come back to the brain, and I can paste that thought icon. I also, you may have noticed there's an option here called Capture Thought Icon. This would actually minimize the brain, and I'd get a little crosshair on my desktop, and I could select any image that's appearing on my desktop. So I can get, basically capture an image of a document or of a web page or of a portion of a graphic. If there's a whole series of people, but I just want me in that group, I can frame that out with that capture thought icon. So feel free to play around with that feature. You can always delete the icon and start right back over again. So here my heart will appear for all of my inspiration thought icons. And there, I'm sorry, I was wrong. The heart actually overrides the attachment image. So there I've got the little picture of the heart there. So I know that's an inspiration item. And I can go to the Blacker House, just a fantastic architectural private residence done by the same architects that did the Gamble House, Green and Green. I can right-click on that. I'll make that an inspiration thought as well. So I just simply right-click and then select change the thought type and go down to inspiration. And that'll acquire that's those same items. I can go to a completely different section of the brain, and let's say there's a particular lake, Cherokee Lake. It's just a beautiful lake in northern, I think this might actually be in Canada, or possibly Minnesota. But I'm going to right-click there, and I'm going to change that from, it's not just a lake, it's an inspiration thought. It already falls under lakes, so that I know that it's a lake, and it's also just an inspiration thought for me. I get very inspired thinking about this lake, and I can keep some notes on that lake and so on. Now, the advantage to doing this, once again, is not only seeing right there in the brain that this thought is a lake, this thought is an inspiration item, this thought is a top priority, and so on. But remember, we can filter our searches and we can filter our reports by thought types. So even though I've got inspiration thoughts, peppered all over this very large brain, I can find them all very, very easily just by filtering by my thought types of inspiration. So there's my list of the 3 thoughts that are an inspiration to me in this particular brain, and I can navigate to them very, very quickly and easily.
Right, and I think just at a basic level, thought types are, if you set up even 4 or 5 of them just to get a unified aesthetic, like for instance a people thought type with just a generic icon of people, you could have all the people in your brain just thought typed as people, places or things, and then each one has that icon and that color coding just to help you navigate and organize.
That's right, and you can always go back and change those settings later. And even if you decide to change the graphic that appears with inspiration, let's say you now have 200 thoughts that are all inspiration thought types, and you put the wrong graphic up, and you just want to go in and change it from a red heart to a purple heart, or to a picture of a marble or something like that. All you need to do is go back to Properties and Attachments and edit the thought type, and we'll capture a thought icon this time so you can see what that looks like. So let's say I want this image over here on the right. This is the image I'm looking for. I'll say OK. And that image has now been set for universally across the brain for all of the inspiration thought types. You can always go back and change it later.
Okay, and then finally, we've talked a little bit about thought types. If real quick, because I know we're kind of over the hour here, Matt, you could show a few examples on thought tags, maybe some that you might have in your own personal brain, because another way to sort of organize thoughts is through tags, and in fact you could have even just a tag for inspirations or a tag for 2010 goals, and really what a tag is it's similar to a thought type, but you can have multiple tags per thought in your brain.
Absolutely. I'm actually going to switch to one of my business examples of personal brain, and I'm going to go down here to, I think I'll go to one of the database thoughts. So I've got basically a group of different databases that I'm working on. This is actually a fictitious brain, but you can see what I mean, and you can see the relationship between thought types and thought tags. A thought type, there can only be one thought type assigned to a thought. And this is a great example. Power 5 is a database. I've got the typical cylinders stacked on top of one another, which is sort of the universal image for a database. It's always going to be a database. It's never going to become a person or a project or anything like that. But it may have different attributes. The database may be located in Texas, or maybe the database is a backup database, and so on. And all of those attributes can be defined here on the tag section. And as you can see, I actually have some of them selected. So you can see this is a backup database. This database is located in London, and there's no remote access to this database. Maybe you also need security clearance of level 1 or level 6. I can check security clearance level 1 and uncheck security clearance level 6. And I can see that it's checked with security level 1, and there are 7 other thoughts with security level 1 access. So I can click on that actual tag, and see all databases or applications that require a particular security clearance level. Another example would be, let's say, for Remedy 5, this is an application, and you can see right away how using the thought types really is an advantage. I can see that this is an application because of the little software graphic that I've attached there to it. I can see the database that it's running on because of the database graphic. I can see the actual user community because of the people there that are relying on this application. And I can see the manager, Tanya, that is in charge of this application. So if I know if something goes wrong, I know to go straight to that particular person, that's the manager. So already, just visually, my thought types are helping me. And then my thought tags, let's say, for example, we need to upgrade this particular application. And we need to do that, we'll say, before second quarter 2010. I need to speak with the CEO about that. I can make a note here in the note section. I can set up a reminder on the calendar. But also, I can just tag speak to the CEO for this particular thought. Now, when my CEO calls me out of the blue on a late Thursday afternoon when my mind is clearly somewhere else on another project, I can switch gears really quickly. I just click on Speak to the CEO tag, and I see all the items that I need to speak to the CEO about. There's a couple of database issues, and again, I can just click on the thought to go right down to the notes to explain to my CEO what the issue is. When we're done talking about that, we resolve it. I can make a note about what the resolution or what the next steps are and uncheck Speak to the CEO. I'll go back to that particular tag, and we'll finish up our conversation talking about the other items that are all linked to Speak to the CEO here on tags. So you can really use tags for a lot of different purposes, just adding attributes or even just urgency levels or levels of importance to individual thoughts. And Shelley, maybe you could speak to this a little bit. I know that the Getting Things Done community has really attached themselves to this particular feature in Personal Brain because you can really use it to reflect the process of a very popular book, Getting Things Done, which is really more of a methodology now of organizing your life. And this tags feature is really helping people to say, all right, this is something that's due today. This is something that's due this week. This is something that's due next month, and so on. And the tags can help you move through the process of all the documents very, very easily.
Sure, yeah, and I'll go ahead and show my screen and just give you a couple more examples on tags for GTD, and then we'll end the session with I'll showing you one final feature, which actually somebody brought up about how to use wander mode, and I think that'll be kind of the appropriate feature for inspiration and contemplation. But just to add what Matt says about the tags, you can see I have my brain open. Just want to make sure. Can you see my screen, Matt?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great. So I've got that when talking to CEO. But the nice thing, about tags is you can further contextualize your to-do. So when I'm waiting, this is what I want to do. When I'm making calls, these are the calls I have to make. When I'm thinking about things that are in sort of my 6-month time period for goals, they're all tagged 6 months. So that works out really well. If I'm looking at low-cost investments, those happen there. And then here's just an example in a particular brain on ideas for market expansion where I have thought types as well as tags. And the default for the tag, just to let you know, is to have them actually visualized in your thought display. I actually like that, but some people find it's too much. And Matt, in contrast to what I'm doing, you can see has his tags shut off, and so that's something that you can adjust in the properties option. Of course, the resizing circle makes things smaller or busy, so you can kind of adjust the screen itself. That's always one little final feature that I want to make sure everyone knows about, because as you're navigating, you're probably going to want to be resizing your thoughts. And then the final feature that I want to close with, and I'll move back to my inspirational brain, and maybe I'll even go to started off on my concept car section, because I love putting in new designs for cars in my own brain, and I find that very inspiring, is to then go ahead and set your brain to wander mode. So what wander mode is I'm not sure how well, to be honest, this is going to capture on the web meeting. There might be a refresh issue, but this is just my brain in wander, and I can adjust the animation of this, which perhaps I'll do. But you can see when I set it to wander, it was wandering, and then all I have to do is click, and then of course it stops. So if I go into preferences, and do you know where wander mode speed is, Matt, or is that just the animation speed?
You can change the speed on, click on look and feel.
Okay.
And right down there in animation, change that to slow.
Okay, I'll just slow it down for the purpose of the web meeting here and hit OK. And now we'll go back to wander. And so you can see, so what it's doing is it's just wandering around in my brain. So you know, you can have your brain up as a background, even sort of almost like a screensaver with your brain wandering, and you can kind of move into different areas. And this is particularly interesting if you have a larger brain, and sometimes the brain will wander off in an area that you might have actually forgotten about. And then again, if I want to just shut that wandering off, you know, I can just go ahead and click on people, or if I want to start the brain up in wander mode in a particular area, you know, I can go ahead and do that as well. So I think that's going to conclude our presentation today on your brain of inspirations. Thanks for everyone participating, and hopefully we've given you some different ideas for people, things, and places to add to your brain. All of my examples that I went to today, aside from my own personal brain, are available to you as templates, so feel free to email me a reply to the meeting request, and I'll go ahead and send you any brain. We'll probably post a number of these templates up just for clarity on the blog tomorrow as well. And before I end the session, Matt, did you have any final tips or other insights that you want to share with everyone on creating their brain of inspirations?
No, I was just going to say, as long as you pick a topic that's close to your heart and inspires you, you can't go wrong. You're going to create a great brain. And if you think of any questions or have any concerns in the future, feel free to contact us at support@thebrain.com. We're happy to hear from you.
All right. Well, thanks, everyone. I do want to remind you we have Personal Brain tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. That's our ongoing free webinar training class for any of you that want to go dive any deeper into any area of functionality you want. And I would like to wish everyone well, and hope we've given you some fuel for imagination in your own digital brain. Thanks, everyone.